Hello there, good morning. The war in Gaza has led to a humanitarian catastrophe. Egypt has proposed a long-term reconstruction plan to rebuild the devastated enclave. So with Israel resuming ground operations and diplomatic efforts at an impasse, what are the prospects for ending the conflict? Meanwhile, President Donald Trump's administration is reportedly considering relinquishing the US role as NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe, a position held exclusively by American generals since 1950. Could this move signal a broader shift in US foreign policy? Let's get in focus. So we begin with Gaza, and Gaza remains in a state of crisis, with the humanitarian toll mounting amid ongoing Israeli airstrikes and a blockade that has left millions of Palestinians struggling for basic necessities. Egypt has put forward a comprehensive reconstruction plan, but diplomatic negotiations remain deadlocked, and the latest Israeli military operations have escalated tensions. As international pressure grows, is there a viable path forward for Gaza's recovery, or will political divisions prolong the suffering? In an opinion piece for The Hill, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati detailed a multi-phase reconstruction plan for Gaza between now and 2030, focusing on emergency relief, infrastructure rebuilding, and economic recovery. Endorsed by all 22 Arab states, the initiative aims to stabilize Gaza while advocating for a political resolution leading to an independent Palestinian state. Egypt insists reconstruction alone is not enough, proposing a transitional Palestinian-led administration with no political faction in control. However, challenges persist. A UN-condemned airstrike killed a staff member. Israel has resumed ground operations, and ceasefire talks remain stalled as neither side concedes ground. Will Egypt's plan gain traction, or does Gaza's recovery remain a distant hope? Now, for more on this, we are joined by Ayman El-Rokab, a political science professor. Thank you very much for joining us here, Professor. Now, Egypt has proposed this long-term reconstruction plan for Gaza. What do you think the main challenges surrounding this plan are?
The proposals plan is promising, that contains great details, and it's clear who laid down the plan is or a group of engineers and businessmen that been through all the details of Gaza. It's not only related to the construction, but trying to expanse of the shores of the sea. The first challenge is the Israeli occupation that approve the process and to stop the process of destruction. And the second challenge is the financing the project, and I think that Egypt would convene a conference to the construction of Gaza in order to get an aggressive generous support. But I think the big dilemma is the occupation to the Israeli that will fail the process of these steps.
Now, the plan calls for a Palestinian-led administration in Gaza during the transition. Do you think that's realistic?
the whole plan is realistic and feasible. They contain very accurate details, and those who outlined this plan know very well the problems of reconstruction. But I think to move on in the phase of the reconstruction that would require the removing the obstacles practiced by the occupations. The dangerous, the occupation that they want the Gaza to be a place or an area of that is inhabitable, and force the Palestinians to leave Gaza. Even the Arab stance is unified, and but the Israeli government is still insists to let the Palestinians to flee Gaza voluntarily.
Now, Israeli ground operations have resumed. This is despite international pressure for a resumption of the ceasefire. Things seem to be going in the wrong direction, to be honest with you. What do you think the prospects for reconstruction and long-term peace are?
He followed previously or out of the war in Gaza of direct targeting to the civilians and the closure of Salah ad-Din corridor and the leave of the security personnel position that corridor that is a great breakthrough. So as we should talk about the end of the war, indicating or highlighting the challenges, but we should also stop the killing of the civilians. More than 400 Palestinians were killed in the last 24 hours, and also there is a dire need of reoperate of the hospitals. Even the 7 remained hospitals are facing a great disasters.
Now, the UN, of course, has condemned attacks on its aid workers. Very, very dangerous place to be right now for members of the UN's staff. Humanitarian conditions, of course, in Gaza remain dire. Are there measures that can be taken now to ensure that aid reaches those who need it?
Throughout the long period of the war, there wasn't no will of the international community of the accessing or delivering in the humanitarian aid. We've already seen that the closure of the crossings for about 20 days, and even in the months of Ramadan, we've seen that the 50% of the population of Gaza are not having clean water to drink. The United Nations is crippled to even send the water or clean water to the children of Gaza. So the United States, even the main supporter of the occupation, so the response should have, in order to have some sort of a change, that require an announcement by the US that pursue to delivering the aid is in Gaza and to continue pressure in the occupation. If this happened, the occupation would change, but I do not think that will be seeing the opposite by the Israeli forces in Gaza. We are calling upon a resolution by the UN General Assembly to have or to deploy international troops to make some sort of a separation between the borders between the Israelis and the Palestinians, even in order to maintain the lives of the people. And if there is some sort of geographical spot to separate between the Gaza and the Israeli troops.
Okay, Professor, and of course, as things stand right now, diplomatic negotiations remain gridlocked. Is there something that Egypt can do to break this impasse?
Since the first day of the aggression upon Gaza is a plain and a relentless effort, and even the past hours it made the communication with the United States along with Qatar, and they talk about the end of the war. And of course, the innocent people who are the ones paying the ultimate price. We've already 700 martyrs, most of them from women and children. There is no way to resume the negotiations, but we are hindered and troubled, obstacled by the statements of Netanyahu and his actions, and even the return of Ben Gvir to his government. And the statement of the Minister of War were by saying that it is required from the people of Gaza to go or take to the street demonstrating before Hamas movement. So their actions are not actually fruitful, and they not give a great hope for the peace process.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Q News. Professor Ayman El-Rakab, thank you very much indeed. So as Gaza remains under siege, the question remains, will diplomatic efforts pave the way for reconstruction, or is the crisis set to continue indefinitely? While Gaza's future remains uncertain, another significant geopolitical shift is unfolding in Europe. The Trump administration is reportedly considering relinquishing US command of NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe, a role the US has held since NATO's inception. Could this mark a turning point for transatlantic relations?
Donald Trump is his name, and he's there to stay.
As unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
America powerful. We will win, win, win. And we will make America great again. We will very quickly make America great again.
For nearly 75 years, the United States has held the top military command position in NATO, overseeing strategic operations and ensuring American influence in European security. But now reports suggest that the Trump administration is weighing a major reconstructuring that could see the US relinquish its command role. Would this move be a necessary adjustment in NATO's power dynamics, or could it weaken the alliance at the time of heightened geopolitical tensions? NBC News reports that the Pentagon is considering restructuring US military commands, including relinquishing the NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe, or SACEUR. Framed as a cost-cutting measure, the move aims to push European allies to take greater defence responsibility. Former NATO commanders, including Admiral James Stavridis, warn that this could weaken US influence, calling it a political mistake of epic proportion. European leaders are divided. Some fear a reduced US commitment, while others see an opportunity for greater European leadership. With Congress potentially blocking the plan, the decision remains uncertain, but its impact on NATO's leadership could be historic. Now, to join us right now and talk about these issues, Dr. Ashraf Singer, who is a political analyst for us here at Qnews. Welcome back to the program, Dr. Singer. So, the US has held the NATO Supreme Allied Commander role since 1950. Why on earth would they relinquish the role?
This is a very big shift, and sometimes you cannot really understand President Trump, decisions. There is two stories, about that decisions. If he gonna to apply it soon, either cut the cost or cut the cost of the Defense Department, in terms of saving some billions of dollars, or he really is pushing, the Europe to take their responsibilities in taking care of the European security. Of course, Trump, many times, since even the first term, he critiques, he did critique, Europe in terms of the defense budget. But Trump, to come to take that decision, and in his explanation, that is, in the military command hierarchy, now he is really interested about, cut the cost of the Department of Defense. This is can really make a big shift in NATO. U.S. Lead military defensive alliances, and of course, United States is the main provider of the security goods to the Europe, and United States was making what we call, the umbrella of the defense, umbrella of defense, even the nuclear umbrella. But now Europe is really facing their own future, or trying, to recognize their own future, because the current situation between Ukraine and Russia, Europe is not really happy.
I wanted to ask you about that, actually, Dr. Singer, because as you mentioned there, President Trump has been arguing that NATO allies should take more responsibility for their own defense, and he has been saying this consistently since his first term. Do you think the message is finally getting through to European nations?
Yeah, of course, they did receive it, and Europe is really taking, that situation in a very deep thinking and very serious response in terms of what, Europe decided to increase its budget to reach to 650 billion euro. This is almost, will be equivalent to United States by itself, military or defense budget. Second, yesterday, Germany, did approved, $3.3 billion to Ukraine, which means that that decision by United States to withdraw itself from NATO command, it didn't see. I can't really see that United States will withdraw from the NATO, but Musk or Trump, both of them, they were repeating, many times they were really interested to withdraw United States from NATO, and this is really big shift. This is can really change, the international security arrangement, particularly in Europe and in Asia. This is completely in the opposite direction of Biden administration. Biden administration was working hard to make NATO very strong, make NATO one country, or apply the Article 5 in every country, or to every country in NATO. But now it seems to me like Trump is taking United States out of NATO obligations. Sometimes you can really hear or listen to the financial burden that, the central argument in Trump approach, to NATO with the financial cost, as I mentioned about the U.S. Defense Department. But Trump claimed that many times that it's been because of United States was really taking or burdening, the NATO defense spending by itself, where the other Europeans, they were not really meeting the defense spending target of 2% of their GDP, and he did ask for 5%. But it seems to me after that claim or that kind of discussions from United States or by Trump, it seems to me Europe will move more than 5% of their GDP, gross domestic product, for the near future. It seems to me like 2030, we'll see Europe in different situation, particularly UK, Germany, France, all of them are the major powers in Europe. They are taking that situation very seriously because this is a huge shifting of US global strategy. That that kind of withdraw from leading NATO, and now United States need to be America first in terms of its foreign policy. This is probably will create many gaps in international security arrangements.
When it comes to this top job in NATO being relinquished and given up by the United States, as we've mentioned, this job has been held by an American since the beginning of NATO. Many retired military leaders, many who have held that position, have said this is an absolutely terrible idea for the United States. Can you see it happening?
I can't really buy this argument by Trump. Even Trump is very serious in his speech or in his talking, to Europeans, that is, United States will not be part of NATO or even withdraw from the NATO command. It seems to me like Trump is shaking the status quo, but leaving Europe alone is not healthy for the United States security arrangement. Like, if United States failed to keep that strong arrangement or security arrangement with Canada, this is terrible too. So my best understanding that is kind of Trump leadership style in terms of shaking the status quo, pushing the other European alliance to increase their share of defense budget of their GDP, probably the potential plan of Trump to bring Russia back to the U.S. security arrangement rather than Russia move to China. So this is gonna to please the Putin in current situation between Ukraine and Russia. So giving the Putin all the conditions in terms of achieving peace between Ukraine and Russia. In other words, give Russia the privilege to decide what is next step between Ukraine and Russia. So as Putin mentioned, Ukraine shouldn't be part of NATO. So reconstruction, that plan with NATO mean that's giving some push or pushing steps to NATO members, particularly in Europe, to accept the plan by United States and Russia to end that conflict between Ukraine and Russia. But Europeans, as alliance and as a NATO member, they are not accepting that kind of approach between Trump and Putin over Ukraine situation and over the NATO arrangements.
Well, we've just got a few seconds left. So in a word, from your prediction, in a word, yes or no, will an American still be in the top job at NATO this time next year?
Yeah. I believe that is NATO. United States will still commanding and taking care of NATO, because this is really disaster if United States was withdrawn from NATO for its security and for European security.
Well, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, Dr. Ashraf Singer, joining us on the line there. Now, if the Trump administration follows through with these NATO challenges, it could redefine US military strategy in Europe and beyond. From the humanitarian crisis in Gaza to potential changes in NATO leadership, today's episode has explored two critical issues shaping global affairs. Will Egypt's reconstruction plan bring hope to Gaza? And is the enclave trapped in a cycle of destruction? And is NATO about to undergo a fundamental shift, or will the US retain its leadership role? We'll keep these developments in focus. See you next time. Have a good day.